One of the ways you keep your group together from 12 to a couple dozen people is to have a colorful shirt, and they design it. And on this shirt, you'll see from 2014 the names of the missionaries, those of us who went, and I think maybe a map of the Dominican. And these are recommended by Julius Ariel, who is Bede's predecessor here as the director of the library. They are for military folk, and although I had, I took pause for a moment before I ordered them. They've got dozens of pockets, and they stay clean, and they're Velcro, and they're great for travel and the kind of work that we do. So anyway, I'm in costume today.
So what are those pants? I mean, what brand is it?
I'll tell you later.
Yeah, because
it's back here. They're really great. They're not cheap, but they're good.
Okay.
The trip, my probably 10th mission trip, my first was to Belize. I started going to the Dominican Republic probably 10 years ago. And so this has become a habit. And I joined with two folks from a church in Valdosta as team leaders. And we were, I think, about 18 people. You'll see a picture of the team in the subsequent photos. And we go to the same place essentially every year. Although 2 years ago, I took a group of our young people from church to a different community, San Francisco de Macorís, which is in flat country in the Dominican, where we're going. I'm going to just move in here. Yes, we took a group of youth there with some parents and youth. This is in the mountains of the Dominican, and we are in lovely climate, and as you will see in the photos, a very, very beautiful setting. The border with Haiti is over here. I've done sort of acquaintance trips where we take folks who want to see the mission opportunities. So I've traveled around with groups, and we've been over to the border of Haiti and even considered doing mission right there on the border back when the catastrophe happened. So I've been to a number of sites there, but this is the main one. And the very first year I was there, I painted.
Excuse me, you
Yes.
mentioned the title that you had.
Oh yeah, I was going to elaborate on the title a little bit. Love Works, Adventures in the Dominican. We were in the airport coming back in Orlando a while back, actually last June, and there was a young team over there, and that was their motto they had adopted, Love Works. And I loved the double entendre of it. Love works and love works. And that leads me to say that there are really two different approaches to mission. The Episcopal approach, that of the Episcopal Church, is to let your words, keep your words to yourself, let your deeds speak for you. So the motto on one of our previous t-shirts was reputedly from St. Francis, preach the gospel every day, if necessary, use words. I like that. I've always liked that. So we don't preach. We make friends. We create relationships. And so that's Love Works sounded good to me. And of course, that is the case. This is the retreat center for the Episcopal Diocese of the Dominican. The Diocese of the Episcopal Church down there is one of the dioceses of the Episcopal Church USA. So just as this one is, they are the same. And this is their retreat center. And the first year there, one of my jobs with youth was to paint that building. Now, it's been painted 3 times since, but I remember that job well. And this, as you can see, is a rather nice setting. Now, that's the reverse direction, and we see mountains and rainbows almost without fail when we're there, because there's often an afternoon rain. And this is a wonderful big playground where we host the kids later. This was our most recent team, and Bede, did you know Julius, or do you?
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's the former director of this library, and he's become a videographer, and in fact, he is very integrally involved with the Dominican Development Group, which is the channel by which all American Episcopal mission work flows. So if I were to write a check to the Dominican, it would go through that organization, become tax deductible, and then be channeled appropriately. We are quite a mix. We've got a doctor, we've got a house painter, we've got a former Spanish professor, we've got a math teacher, we've got a carpenter, we've got one of the fastest knitters in the world. Padre and his wife are from Colombia, and they are in charge of this place. And as you can maybe tell, since I mentioned the knitter, about a third to a half of the team are knitters. And one of the missions we've done is to teach people to knit and crochet and whatever it is these people do. It's not one of my skills. And they make a lot of wonderful little things, many of which we buy and bring home for gifts. So we've tried to empower the women of the village to earn their keep. That's the team this time. They have the most wonderful love story. He was in training to become a Catholic priest in his home country of Colombia. He was ministering to her father, who was ill. And they noticed each other, and they fell in love, and they were in a forbidden situation. So long and the short of it is, love won out, and he left the Roman church and entered the process to become an Episcopal priest. So they are the happiness of their relationship radiates among us and in the community. I'm not sure. Okay, the building on the left half of that is a church which we built in this little poor community. If you know Statesboro, you know that we can go to the west side of town and see a poor suburb of Statesboro. And if you walk a lot and look hard, you can see some really distressing poverty. El Pedregal, which is the village we go to, is a sort of a suburb of Jarabacoa, which is a tourist community, a rather sizable, medium-sized town. So this is where we go, and the commitment of the bishop of this diocese is to build schools and churches. And the reasoning is that if there's any single way to lift up a community, it is a school and a church. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of a church, because we're not the only church to know that works. Now, one of the interesting things you might not know is that it is a Catholic country, and the huge majority of the country is, titularly Catholic, although not practicing Catholic so much. And another fact that that bishop has to deal with down there, Bishop Oldine, is that the public schools, which are Catholic, are supported. So the schools that we support entirely on our own with no help from the Dominican government. That creates a real challenge. But probably 8 years ago, there were 2 big piles of gravel here, and there was nothing there. And our job during my week there was with wheelbarrows to haul the gravel from over here to the base of this building. So I've watched that building go up, and over a period of 2 years, was engaged in doing it. And then, of course, as soon as they finished that part of it, we began the school part of it. So our teams have been involved in building the church as well as the school, and one of the things you see, and you may have seen this if you travel in third world countries, there's always rebar sticking out of the top of the building, because they always look forward to when we can add the second story. So, and I've seen this in Turks and Caicos, I've seen it in many other places. And I didn't see it, by the way, recently in Greece and the Isles that I went to. Similar building, similar structure, but no rebar out the top. But that is a sort of a Caribbean fact. And this is still in development, as you can see, and they never have enough space. So this is the first pass at starting a playground that we built. About 4 members of my team, and I work in and out of several of the teams, we did that. One of our members designed the play apparatus. They came down and we got that far within a week, sinking the posts in concrete and what have you. The team with which we coordinated from Nebraska came the following week and did this, which I just think was wonderful. I take pride in the fact that I showed them a picture of our playground at our church, which is painted multicolored, and I thought, here, you might like this, and Padre and his wife fell in love with it, so that's what they got. And I love it. I think it's delightful. And the kids, as you might see in pictures, are really having a ball with it. This is the shack that came down before we came. This is the young woman, Jacqueline, with one of her children. And boy, talk about a worker. She was incredible. There is her family and Padre and his wife. One of the things that didn't work out for me this year, this boy is 15, and we were on a walk later in the week, and we were trying like the Dickens to talk, because I don't speak Spanish except in chunks. So, for example, when the word aeroplane came up, anyway, you may know it, I don't. But anyway, I found out he wanted to be an engineer, and he wanted to learn English. So I made what I thought was a good deal with Padre to get him into town to take English. And I said I'd pay for that, and I'd even pay for the motor scooter to get him there and back. It didn't work for some reason, and I'm really eager to gently see if I can't make another pass, because if there's anything that equips these youngsters better to rise in the culture, it's speaking English. And so I'm determined to see if I can make that work. If not for that young man, perhaps for others in the future. That's what we came to. They had gotten that far. The site had been raised. So that's where we picked up. And this will be a house for 5 to 7 people. I can't tell you exactly what's what, but they will be crowded by our standards, but they are very happy now in their new secure home. Jacqueline and I was manhandling concrete with my hands, which if you've done anything like this, you don't do it that way. But we were tucking in here, so and she worked harder than any of us. But it was a joy. It was a joy to be on the job site. And I forgot to drink water, and I almost passed out. So you have to learn. That's the Nebraska team which followed us. This is one of the knitting. Grady, the gentleman on the right, is probably 70-ish, and he's bilingual. He taught Spanish at one of the university system schools. So he's a tremendous asset. And so there's one of the little creations. Everything is done by hand. We don't bring in concrete trucks. All the concrete is mixed right on the ground. This is 2006, and that is where eventually part of the churchyard took place. This, more of the same project. More of the same project in 06. And now, the last day of the week, now we'll be going on a Monday to Monday. The trip is already laid out for this coming June 15 to 22. On the Sunday before we leave, we pay for and help stage this splash party. And it is just joyful, absolutely joyful. One of the things I witnessed there that I am so very fond of is the fact that the children of every age, from the littlest to the 18 to 20-year-olds, they relate and play together. If ever there was an illustration of the family, the village as a family, this is it. Because if our team decides we're going to walk the village or down to the river, we will have 20 kids in tow within 5 minutes. And nobody knows where they came from or who they belong to, and my guess is nobody's much worried. So off we go on a mile walk with strangers, and everything is okay. But, as you might see in one of these other pictures, okay, this is one of the teenagers, but here they are, all having fun together. And I don't think I've more than once or twice in all these years heard kids crying. And I guess that's because nobody pays any attention, or I'm not sure why. But the culture of the children is beautiful to behold. Liz is one of our Spanish speakers on the team, and she really delights in interacting with the kids. Self-explanatory. Lovely rooms, you know, they're bright, and there are no windows. Those are just those jalousie shutters that open and close. The roof's leaking already, by the way. The construction practices over there are, frankly, when we bring a handyman from here, we have to muzzle him because there are so many things to fret with and object to in the way they do things. And of course, one of those things is, as I say, the roof is going to leak within a couple of years. They had some plumbing in one of the buildings where the toilet drain went uphill and, you know, obviously not functional from day one. We retrofitted that. All right, they've already resorted to dividing the space into two so that the kids can do their school, more classes. This is a school which presents an opportunity to some kids who would not get to school otherwise. So there are not enough schools, and if I'm not mistaken, they do double sessions in the public schools in this country. That is to say, youngsters come in the morning to midday, and the older kids come in the afternoon. 8th grade. We've been through a graduation. Tulio is special needs kid, and one of our members adopted him and has paid for his special schooling ever since he was a little one. And as you can see, he by the way, he's made remarkable progress. He's moved right along. Julia is Julius's wife, and this we contributed over $30,000 raised from our two churches and friends for scholarships. We pegged the scholarships at about $350 per kid. For a whole year, we can put a kid in school. So this is the little, sort of what we call our ceremony. And that is an acknowledgement of Julius, who I'm thrilled to say has stayed in my life. And by the way, he and his wife do all the work. They make it so easy for me. They're both A-types. So for example, the schedule for next June is already down, and they've already bought their tickets, and so forth and so on. Well, that was the short version, and I really welcome your questions about any of this. There's so much more I can say.
Well, I'd be interested in a little bit of information about, I don't know, the status of the school, because you indicated, of course, that the official religion is Catholic, and therefore the public schools are Catholic.
That's right.
And this school receives no government support or funding or anything,
No.
so it makes it a little bit like a private school in this country, I
It
guess, to a
is.
certain
It's
extent.
Yeah.
But are there other either obstacles or something the equivalent of accrediting things that you have to go through
That
since
is-
you're not part of the public school system?
That's exactly part of the new challenge of the president that came in office a year or two ago, and that is to raise the standards which apply beyond the public schools to the private schools, the church schools like ours. And so, for example, class sizes, all of a sudden, because of regulations, the standards have been raised, and so we have to meet them or close. One of the very unfortunate things is the teachers are not paid as much, so these people are working for a lot less money than they might if they were teaching in a public school, which is unfortunate. I don't know about academic standards, I'm not sure. I'm sure they do their best to teach the kids appropriately, because some of them will go on to public high school, because we don't have the full range all the way to 12th grade here yet, although I suspect that's the plan. Yes, if you had a question.
So you say the neighboring community is a tourist community?
It is.
So tell us more about the kind of broader context of. So
Okay.
you're teaching in kind of the poorer suburb, I got the
Mhm.
notion of a kind of tourist community, and that's American tourists, actually Dominican
Lots of
tourism?
German people.
German people.
European people.
So Europeans.
Dominican is probably the number one tourist, I could be wrong, could be American, but Germans are one of the, this is one of their favorite destinations. Not necessarily Jarabacoa, but the northern coast. I have to tell you that I'm conflicted. Several years, I wanted my partner Bobby to join me at the end of my mission trip and have a little week's vacation on the tail end. But I keep coming back to the fact that I do not want to go from this poverty-stricken area, which I love and which I've come to appreciate, and go to the North Coast and move into a resort for a week. Now, I do the very same thing. I've done the same thing elsewhere. We went to the Turks and Caicos, and of course, if you ride around a little bit, you see the poverty, and then you go back to your resort. So I haven't vacationed in the Dominican, but many people do. One of my yoga students, for example, local lady and her husband, the North Coast of the Dominican is their favorite place to go. And it is beautiful, and I'm sure it's hugely rich. By the way, you don't drink the water. You have to, bottled water is the rule, and you don't put toilet paper in the toilets anywhere, as far as I know, except maybe in the resort communities, because it's not equipped to handle that sort of thing. So one of the little adjustments you make when you go to a place like this. But again, we have it very good. We stay well. We have little dorm rooms. I mean, it's just a bunk, but nothing to complain about. Other groups, and we do send half a dozen groups from this diocese. Our diocese goes from the coast over to as far as Valdosta, Albany, Dublin, Augusta. So we're a very large diocese. So partly because of repeated trips, we will, for example, take a group of people and show them the ropes, and they'll go back, and next year they're going to take a trip with their people, and they will go to a community they found that touched their hearts.
So do you have much interactions with the tourists there?
No, we don't see any tourists. No. And back to your other question, Jarabacoa is whitewater rafting and mountain climbing, mountain hiking. These are not high mountains, but some wonderful hiking. And I guess maybe 10 years ago, our leader there took us whitewater rafting, and I've never had more fun. It was really just screamingly funny and fun, and no harm done. I've never done it before or since, but great whitewater rafting. And of course, this camp is on the ledge, and if you walk over to the fence, you look way down to the river, and across the river are some long, big greenhouses. And one of the industries which the bishop has tried to get going here is to build some greenhouses on their property to make money. So that's an endeavor.
Fred, were you there the year that the swings were installed?
So did you go there?
No, I've stayed in touch with Fred, and another friend of ours, Michael Woods, who's the Episcopal Campus Ministry person here at Statesboro, has been, and he's an accomplished artist, and he has a watercolor that he did of the swings, and he's told me the story of the children were so excited when they installed the swings in the playground, and I was just thinking, the things we take for granted. I mean, American kids, you always see a tire going from a tree or something, but I got the impression these kids had never seen swings before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were so excited, you would think you'd given them the moon almost.
Well, the very first year I was there, there was a piece of property on which they play ball. And for maybe $100, we went to town and bought the fencing and the post and whatever was necessary to make a backstop, whatever you call it, behind the batting place. And we put that up and mowed a little bit more. And of course, it was too dense back there, so they probably lost too many balls. So eventually that fell out of favor. But it doesn't take much to be helpful. Now, one of the things that you find is well, we've created some permanent friendships, you know, individuals have, and those abide. I'm in contact with several of my friends down there, and always looking for opportunities to be helpful, to you know, because what pocket change to me can mean a lot if I direct it.
How does it work with the Catholic Church there? Do they see you as competition? Do they work together?
Mm-hmm.
You know, did you guys agree to work on common projects? You know,
I've asked the bishop that question. It can be tense.
Oh, we can.
It's not exactly utterly cooperative, but it's not hostile by any means. It's just that no, they don't.
There's
they
no
don't,
cooperation.
Not ideal. No, I mean he was a little even guarded in what he said. I guess it's proprietary from the point of view of the Catholic hierarchy there.
And on the grassroots there, you know, because I could imagine, you know, you can agree to work on a common project, right? You
Would be
know,
wonderful.
That'd be wonderful.
Yes,
and maybe that's the
absolutely.
way to break the ice, to, you know, work with the local priest,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and they have a different set of imperatives, I think, and considerations
They do.
to, you know, work on a common project.
There's
You know,
a evangelical couple that work right in the village there, mostly like a medical mission, and we work very well with them.
With them.
Very
And they had no
well.
problem with that.
No problem at all. Whenever it's people to people,
Right.
there don't seem to be problems. It's
Institutions.
bureaucratic and institutional where all of a sudden it's a political question instead of a simple
They
question.
see it as a series of games
I
instead
know,
of,
I know.
Yeah.
As turf, if
Yeah.
you will.
yeah.
Kevin,
How long have you been going there? Have you seen any kids grow up?
I have. Oh, I have to
Yeah.
tell you a little anecdote. We went to see a baseball game in nearby, and they love baseball. You know, Dominicans in baseball.
Sure.
And one of the young men who is I've known since he was really quite small is an incredibly good baseball player. So we went to watch him play, and we watched the first game, and then there was a break, and I got up and walked around, and this tall youngster who had been the umpire turned around and said, "Federico!" And I took another look, and I vaguely recognized that this was this kid that I knew about this high. Now he was, you know, a foot taller than I was. And again, with my fumbling Spanish and his amiability, we had a reunion. But yes, over time, you see them grow up. And by the way, you see them grow up and have babies. Now, this will be the generalities of a novice, if you will, observer. For the men, there is, in a village like this, for the men, there is no prospect beyond. When you become an adult, if you don't have a good idea or a good friend, you don't have many prospects. You're going to go to the city. They go to Santo Domingo, which is like big cities tend to, you know, this is how it happens. And that breaks my heart. That's why, for example, this idea of maybe having this young man learn English so that he can be an interpreter for mission groups, if nothing else.
Right.
For the young woman, having a baby puts her in the world. It's like a rite of passage. See, there is no rite of passage for the males, as I see it, because they can father dozens of children, but that's no rite of passage.
Right.
Now, if they were to get married and had a job and were able to settle into some kind of a secure life, okay, we could call that a rite of passage. But for the young ladies, and sometimes very young ladies, they have a baby and all of a sudden they're adults, like it or not. And in some sense, they cope better than the men. The men are going to be drinking and having all sorts of, you know, all the social ills that come with poverty and joblessness. So there's that whole distressing side of what we see. But that's, I guess, why we feel so powerfully that education is the way up. And you hope not out, because I don't like to see people abandoning small communities and going to big cities. I don't know if you guys are fans of William Wordsworth, but he has a marvelous poem called Michael, and that's what Michael is about. Michael is the son of a shepherd couple in the middle of the wilds of England. And the poem is about Michael leaving and disappearing forever, goes to the city and gets, swallowed up in the city. Beautiful, moving poem. Little moment of English professor here. Other questions?
So no prospects. So the local economy, tourism, agriculture just doesn't function enough to create jobs.
Not much, no. Not right
There's
here.
some.
Not right here.
Yeah.
If they're bright and they somehow get English, because that really makes a world of difference, then occasionally they get jobs. But what I do see among so many of the young men is they're still lurking about, but they don't seem to have any gain. They're not in school, and there's no gainful employment for them now. The young man I spoke of a moment ago, he became friends with the daughter of a pair of missionaries from Rhode Island, and this Rhode Island team has been coming every year as we have. And Carlos and she became friends and finally affianced, and they will be married in February. And I'm so grateful because for Carlos, this will be a breakthrough opportunity, because if they don't stay there, and she's teaching school down there, if they stay there, then I suspect Carlos will have a leg up. His wife speaks English, she has connections. On the other hand, I've heard Heather, when we've had conversations, say that her intention is after maybe a year or so, they will go back to Rhode Island. And he will learn English. And by the way, one of the things I discovered in coming to know him better is he's very nearly illiterate. So, when I've gotten emails from him, I can't read them, and they won't translate in Google because his language is so colloquial that it just doesn't translate. So.
Fred?
Yeah.
This may be a better question for Julia, but did any of the men ever participate in the knitting and crochet classes?
I haven't seen it, no.
That's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
A lot of men do those kinds of things.
That's true. Well, like Grady are. Yeah, men do that stuff too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm just thinking, if they really concentrated on making things, they might really be able to help.
And by the way, I didn't mention it, but the construction site is always hosts a number of the young men who are probably working for nothing. They're just there because they want to work. And I want you to know that I've seen kids this 5 years old walking up that hill with a concrete block. I mean, concrete block weighs a lot. We've got pictures in the archives of these kids carrying concrete blocks until somebody came along and said, no, don't let them do it. And little ones who know how to shovel dirt. Now, most of the adult men I know don't know how to shovel dirt. But these kids, they watch and they learn. And so there are some marvelous workers that are being trained on the job site.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're going to get plugged into a job later.
And the government of the Dominican Republic does nothing there to stimulate the local economy. You see no signs of development coming from the outside, sponsored by the government.
Well, they paved the road. Yeah, there's been progress. This little village looks in a way quite different than it did 10 years ago. So yes, there has been some minor infrastructure improvements. A little more paving here and there, and of course, in a way that brings the church you saw. In front of that was just a ditch, and in heavy rain, we watched half the village floating down to the river below. Now it's a fairly decent, it hadn't been paved yet, but it's lime rock, it's a nice surface. So some of that, you may know better than I whether we have here a third world country or a second world country. It's hard to say because
Those terms
there's,
disappeared.
you're right. But if you travel the country, you see, around Santo Domingo, you're just looking at a prosperous, in a way, city. Enormous poverty, but still lots going on. Lots of agriculture, probably significant resources, natural resources and other resources. So unlike Haiti, Haiti was raped molested in every way. And as you can see, Haiti is, if not one of the poorest places in the world. And the Dominican right next door is anything but. The Dominican is in many ways an up and coming place. So.